Hello, welcome back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days in today's video. And then I'll have a look at CFSV2 very quickly for the next month. So, we've got some fairly unstable air coming up on Thursday, that might give us a bit of a thundery plume Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. Might have a look at on Stormwatch a little bit later on today. Now, once that's out of the way, it looks like we're going to revert to more of a westerly flow, and that's going to take us through next week. And the big question for next week is how influential the Azores High is going to be within that westerly flow. Will the Azores High settle most of us down, or will we actually keep weather fronts coming through off the Atlantic, keeping the fairly changeable, although not desperately wet pattern going next week? That's going to be the questions that we have to answer, I think, over the coming few days. But potentially it could be quite a nice spell of weather coming up next week. Now, before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's these articles on all the pages. You can have a browse widgets and click through links. You'll be able to pay the website. Thanks so much for doing that. With video ads, most pages, which own that content, but you actually make those back up again. Does have to pay for gas up. Before to start off with the GFS temperature and precipitation ensemble. So next 2 weeks. So red line here is the 30-year temperature average. You see that we're going to be going above average over the next day or two, just here. So that's going to be in association with that unstable air pushing up from the south. Then we go through to a cooler interlude into the weekend. The temperature sliding a little bit below the red line. And then after that, we just hover close to the 30-year temperature average. Really no great deviation there as we go through into next week. Start of July, of course, is less than 10 days away now. Having a look at the precipitation coming up over the next couple of weeks. So this is associated with those thunderstorms, possibly on Thursday. Then we get a bit of a drier spell. And then it's these spots just here that's causing the confusion for next week, really. These are showery bands of rain coming in off the Atlantic within a westerly flow. But you see, they aren't great precipitation spots. So there's hints that there's unsettled conditions coming through at times. But overall, I don't think high pressure will be all that far away from the south. And many southern parts could actually get away with a reasonably dry and fairly warm week through the course of next week. Temperature anomalies of the coming week from the 21st to 29th of June, generally close to average. Precipitation anomalies, again, generally close to average as well. It's a bit wet average in the southeast, and that's a lot to do with those thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. This is how the generic chart's looking then. This is Saturday, and we're bringing down this northwesterly flow at that point with the Azores High trying to ridge in from off the Atlantic. That high does send a ridge over Coach on Sunday, so that looks a very pleasant day. That continues into Monday as well. And then you see the ridge continues really as we go through into Tuesday, so that looks quite nice. There is a little bit more unsettled conditions to the far north and west, but overall we're under that ridge there on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, the ridge continues, maybe drift a little bit further east. And if it gets to the east of us, it'll start to bring up hotter air from off the continent again. And we go up towards day 10. This is Thursday, 30th of June through to Friday the 1st of July. And then it looks like it's turning more unstable and potentially even a little bit thundery as well. So right at the end of next week, it maybe turns more unsettled. But it does imply there's a fair amount of settled weather coming up next week. Really quite a pleasant week indeed. The ECWF looks very similar. So again, we've got this trough to the north and east of us on Saturday. Could be bringing showers to the northeast, particularly on Saturday. But the ridge from the Azores High is trying to build in. And it does make it through the country on Sunday. Monday, that ridge is still with us, as it is on Tuesday as well. And then through the middle and latter stages of next week, we gradually start to pull that ridge out of the way. Although even by Thursday, the 30th, it's still just about clinging on this ridge down in the south. But it is more unsettled up in the north. And we end up on day 10, still with a fair amount of settled weather, I would think, through the south. But the north is a little bit more unsettled. But this does imply, both the GFS and the ECM are implying quite a decent week. And probably not all that hot, but very pleasant week coming up next week if this is right. Fair amount of dry weather away from Scotland, where the westerly winds could well keep it a little bit more unsettled and changeable. Let's just have a look at the CFS V2 for the next month before I go. So this is the 500 mile high normally for the coming week. This takes us from the 21st through to the 27th of June. We've got a ridge here to the east through central parts of Europe and in the Atlantic as well, and a trough of low pressure to the northwest Scotland. The jet stream is doing something a bit like that. So this is really indicating the chance of this push up in the temperatures on Thursday, and then probably turning more and settle through into the weekend because this trough is breaking down, cutting off that southerly flow. But just very briefly, it could turn very warm and thundery on Thursday down in the south. Now, this looks rather different to the charts we were just looking at for the very end of June and into the start of July. This is from the 28th of June through to the 4th of July. And it looks really quite unsettled indeed. Deep trough of low pressure to the north of Scotland, and the jet stream coming through the country like that. And the air around that trough is probably originating from Greenland, so not going to be very warm either. That looks cool and unsettled, really, for the start of July. It's a little bit at odds with what we were just looking at from the generic shorter range model charts. But that's what the CFS is doing today anyway. Week 3, which is the 5th through to the 11th of July, that shows the ridge over Scandinavia and in the central Atlantic with a trough. It's not a deep drop, but there probably is a slight drop within the 500 millibar flow, and the jet stream doing something a bit like that. So that could be rather changeable, albeit perhaps transitioning later, something a little bit more settled. And then finally, week 4, which is the 12th through to the 18th of July. This looks very good if you want some summer weather for the middle part of July. We build this area of above average heights, high pressure in across the country. We're sending the jet stream up to the north of the UK as well. That looks very, very pleasant and possibly very warm as you go through to the middle part of July. So it looks fairly changeable really from the CFS-V2 over the next month. It's a changeable summer so far, but temperatures have held up all right generally. So it looks like this continues into the next month as well, into July, with no particular weather pattern getting a ascendancy. Sometimes dry and settled and warm, sometimes cooler and more unsettled conditions sort of alternating. That may be the way we go on through the summer. Sometimes summers can be a little bit like that, but they go just from one thing to another with no particular pattern dominating. So it may be that this is how summer is set, but of course it's far too early to say that. In the shorter range, we've got to watch out for the storms on Thursday. I'll update Stormwatch later probably, and then after that I think we could get a fairly pleasant spell of weather next week. Not all that hot, but a lot of high pressure, particularly to the south, and fairly warm in the sunshine as well, so it could be looking quite nice next week. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.